Welcome. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family, and we would love to hear from you during our very live broadcast. Just give us a jingle at 1-800-221-9460. If you're calling and you're outside of North America, you can reach us at area code 205-271-2980, and you can always send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com. Well, Friday was the 96th anniversary of the assassination of Father James Coyle. We had a beautiful memorial mass. The celebration was at the Cathedral of St. Paul in downtown Birmingham. I was a participant, and first of all, Father Jerebic did a great job at the mass. Yes. You did a great job at the reception, which was beautiful, and you got to share, and you did a great job. I never get tired of listening to you. And Paul Hughes also shared, so it was a wonderful day.
It was very powerful, and I wanted to mention it again because we asked everybody, I think we asked them to pray, but Father Coyle, as the bishop in his time said, was a martyr to duty. And he was the face of the Catholic Church, and he was assassinated because of his faith and morals and belief in the dignity of every human being, and did this marriage between a dark-skinned Puerto Rican guy and a convert girl, and the father assassinated him. And so we present the story of Father Coyle, and there was more young people there than ever before this year that came to the Mass, that came to the reception. We also emphasized that 90 years after Father Coyle's murder, the bishop of the Methodist Church in our area, after 90 years, finally acknowledged at an Ash Wednesday service the evil of this event, the tragedy of it, and asked for healing and reconciliation between all those who claim to be Christians, and had this prayer of repentance that was incredibly powerful. So we wanted to share that with the people, because so many people just think about the murder, but it took 90 years, and that there's no statute of limitation on forgiveness and doing the right thing, as somebody said. So after this great memorial service and the reception, went home and was just reflecting on Father Coyle and his life, and giving thanks for his life, and how I'm connected with him in praying at his grave and coming back to the Catholic Church. And then I said, well, let's start getting ready for our show today on Boys Town. Father Flanagan, that great work that he began so many years ago.
Another very strong Catholic missionary priest. Right?
Yes. Well, that was the point, that when I read about Father Flanagan and Tom Lynch, who's our guest today from Boys Town, it said, Father Flanagan was from County Roscommon, Ireland. And I said, Father Coyle's from County Roscommon, Ireland. And I'm sure priests and sisters have come from that area, but I didn't know any other priests from County Roscommon. And here I was all day dealing with the priest, Father Coyle, a martyr to duty. And then I'm reading about Father Flanagan from County Roscommon, Ireland. And I just felt it was like a sticky note of love from God to say that the communion of the saints is real, and you know, we're all connected. Right. And so I'm very excited about hearing more about Father Flanagan, the great work that he did so many years back. I guess about 1917, 1921, Boys Town was founded about that time. Tom Lynch will tell us all about it. But this work has just exploded. It's famous through the movie Boys Town.
With Spencer Tracy and Mickey Rooney.
We watched it last night. We recommend you watch it again, from 1938-39. It's a wonderful movie. But
Spencer Tracy won an Oscar.
He did.
For that.
He did. But Boys Town isn't like that anymore. I mean, it is the spirit of it and the basic. Because we watched some videos in Boys Town, it's like, it's a town, it's a city. I couldn't believe it. Once I saw it, I said, you got to see this. And it's a water tower, and they have a hospital, and they have their own post office, and they have so many hundreds of young people and people serving them. So it's a great, great work.
Well, I want to say how grateful we are in the United States to all the Irish priests that came over here as missionaries to evangelize us, that we would be a thriving Catholic, you know, church in the United States. And, you know, as in Father Coyle's life, and also in Father Flanagan, the sisters of both of them came with their brothers, you know, to assist them, to aid them. And we were sharing with the grandkids, and I was telling Gianna and Jude about it. And I said, it would be like if Jude became a priest and got sent to another country, Like, would one of his sisters want to go with him? And Gianna goes, I would go with my brother. I wouldn't want him to be alone. And that was the beauty. So the sisters were also missionaries on their brother's journey. Well, today we bring to you Tom Lynch, who is the Director of Community Programs from Boys Town. Do you even know where Boys Town is? boystown.org. You can go to their website. Also, they'll be celebrating their 100th anniversary on December 12th. So we're here to tell you and bring you this beautiful story that you don't want to miss and represent to you Boys Town that's happening all throughout the United States of America.
We're going to be hearing from Donna Marie Cooper O'Boyle, so she'll be coming up next.
Yeah.
Don't go away. We'll be right back. Plenty more to come.
Hello, welcome to Feeding Your Family Soul. What's on the menu? Be vigilant to protect the children. Parents and grandparents have an awesome responsibility to not only teach the faith to their children and grandchildren, but to protect them from the bad influences and the evil of the culture. And it's so important to ensure that your domestic church is a safe haven for all. Now, don't let the evil slip inside the doors of the home through the TV, the internet, through technology, magazines, and more. So be proactive and vigilant. Please reconsider cell phone use for kids. Many parents cave in under the unrelenting begging from the children. But you don't want to open them up to an unsupervised world of technology and internet use. So here's some food for thought. I have vivid memories of the bright red roses that climbed up the arbor and split rail fence in my backyard when I was a little girl. Those thorny branches held tight to the arbor no matter what the weather, faithfully blossoming each year to brighten our yard with striking beauty and rosy fragrance. And we can ask ourselves, do we hang tight to the promise of eternal life and faithfully bloom no matter what? Do we hang tight to protect the children from the evil of the darkened world? Like the faithful rose bushes, we will certainly endure stormy weather, dry seasons, or too much rain in our role as the first and foremost educator of the faith for our kids. But our Lord will provide the necessary graces so we can blossom and radiate heavenly scents to our family. So what thorn prick can you offer to God today? What beautiful grace will you ask from Him? How about this recipe for your family? Take some time soon to look over your domestic church and be mindful of the values of the culture getting inside the walls of your home. We must try to minimize the overwhelming secular influences of our society getting into our domestic church. Ponder steps you could take to monitor your children's activities and technology use. Be prayerful and vigilant. And let us never tire of praying for families everywhere in our world. And let us ask God to grant us the graces for an open heart and open hands, and the graces to send our roots deep into His love. Until we meet again, bye for now. God bless you.
Well, welcome. Well, you know, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and today we bring to you a wonderful guest. For 31 years, our guest has worked for one of the largest nonprofit child and family care organizations in the country. His name is Tom Lynch, and he is the Director of Community Programs at Boys Town. You can go to their website boystown.org. Well, Tom, we want to welcome you to At Home with Jim and Joy, and we're so thrilled to have you.
Thank you for having me this afternoon.
And we're excited to tell our family all about Boys Town. They're celebrating their 100th anniversary, right?
Yes, we are. This is our centennial year. We're really excited.
And that will be on December 12th, right?
December 12th of 2017.
Well, I want you to let our family know all about Tom, because you've been there for 31 years. How did you get there? And tell your story about your connection to Boys Town.
Well, I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. My family's been there since the 1860s. And I came to Boys Town as an intern in college because I was working on a history degree, and my parents said, what are you going to do with a history degree? And I said, well, maybe I'd like to go into museum work. So they were opening a new museum at Boys Town. I went out, did my internship. They said, since you're here, you kind of know what you're doing, why don't you just stay? So I've been there 31 years later. I love it. Boys Town is a family. That's what Father Flanagan advocated. And over the years, you can meet fellow staff and residents who've been there, and everyone functions as a family and love each other as a family.
Beautiful. So you're there 31 years, and your title again is Community and Programs, Community Programming there, which is huge. You're also a historian?
I do the historian projects for
Okay.
Boys Town. I run our volunteer programs there, and I help inform the public about who we are, what we do, and welcome visitors to our village of Boys Town.
Okay, I mean, we started off the show speaking a little bit about Father Coyle, who's not as well known or studied as Father Flanagan. So I've looked at so much stuff regarding Father Coyle. 19 volumes of writings, other things, but I'm just like one person. I can't imagine with Father Flanagan how much material is there. And I'm very interested in the historic aspects of Father Flanagan. Tell us about him, his home of origin, his life, his family, and just the story of Father Flanagan, how he made his way here.
Father Flanagan was born in County Roscommon in 1886 in a two-room stone cottage, had no running water, no electricity. Eventually, he had a very large family of brothers and sisters. There were 15 people living in a small two-room stone cottage. And he grew up there in a very, very loving family. His mom nurtured him. His father was very religious. And his father was kind of the person in the village everyone went to if they had trouble or difficulties. And he was an overseer for a local landlord. So eventually Father Flanagan, he was a very sickly child when he was born. Many people felt he would not grow to be an adult, and if he was going to be an adult, had very weak mind, would not accomplish anything. So his family would send him out to the fields with either a Dickens novel or a Bible, and he'd spend his day taking care of the sheep in the field. Yeah. And Father Flanagan kind of resented that in a way growing up because he felt he could do more to help people. But helping the sheep was really a lot of fun because he was outside and there was a river that goes by their home. So he really enjoyed that part of that aspect of it. And eventually when we went to school, he excelled in school. He said, I'm going to prove my parents and everyone wrong. I'm going to be a success. So he went to school in a local village named Ballymoe in County Galway. He succeeded, went on to Sligo where he went to a local school called Summerhill College, graduated with honors. And then he decided, what am I going to do with my life? Right. And at that time in Ireland, it was part of the British Empire.
That's right.
Irish Catholics were not allowed to hold many offices, and if they did, they were not allowed to own land, and they were really oppressed. And he had grown up with stories from his grandparents, telling stories of the terrible potato famine and the struggles they had gone through. So he really much was thinking of a new way of life where he could succeed in the world. His older sister, Nellie Flanagan, had gone to New York City. Okay. She began to write back saying, why don't you come and join me in Omaha in New York City? Because eventually she came to the Midwest. And his older brother was then asked to come to the city of Omaha and open a parish called Holy Angels. So when Patrick Flanagan said he was going to America, the family went to and asked, could Edward go? And his mother and dad, John and Nora, said, yes, we will allow you to go to America with your older brother and sister. And that's eventually how Father Flanagan came to Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow. And then he went into, as his brother Patrick was a priest, so then he started really discerning, am I called to the priesthood, right? And then he found his way. It was difficult, but right?
When he first came, did he have in his mind, I want to be a priest, or did he do secular work, or how did this, what was the process? Was it easy for him, difficult for him? You said some people felt back in Ireland, maybe he's not as bright as he should be or something, and then he proved them wrong. What happened when he came here? What was his beginning process?
When he came to America, he continued to have that idea. He wanted to become a priest. He felt he was called to do that. He went to local Archdiocese of Omaha, and they agreed that they would sponsor him. So eventually Father went to Baltimore, Maryland, to Mount St. Mary's College to get his BA degree. And we have the records there in our archives at Boys Town where the professors said, very bright Irish boy, but not much of a future. He had too many radical ideas and theories and concepts. And they said, go go back to Nebraska and join your brother, because at that time Nebraska was a very rural area and there was just missions, and they said they're so desperate they'll take anybody in Nebraska, so you can maybe go back there. And Father Flanagan said, I'm going to continue on this mission, because he always had a driving desire to help people and nothing would ever stop him. So eventually he went to he went to Dunwoody actually, outside of New York City, and began to go to the seminary there. And he would take and volunteer in the hospitals of Hell's Kitchen, because he had heard in the hospitals there were fellow immigrants as he was, because he came to America in 1904, age 18, went through Ellis Island. So he would go to the hospitals and minister to the dying and the sick in the hospitals there. And he'd walk the streets of Hell's Kitchen and see the homeless children living on the streets. And eventually, all that extra work led to pneumonia, and he could not continue his studies. So he came back to Omaha, Nebraska. So he came back to Omaha, and he said, I still want to continue on. So then the Archdiocese said, we'll let you go to Rome. So he went to Rome, and he was really excited, being in Rome, and he was at Gregorian University. He was doing great. Again, he developed pneumonia from the weather there. So he had to come back to Omaha. And at that point, his family said, well, maybe you will not be able to become a priest. So he took a year off and worked in a meatpacking plant as a bookkeeper. And he excelled at that, but it really was not meeting his spiritual needs. He felt he wanted to do more. So he finally went back for a third time, went to the Archdiocese of Omaha, said, can I try a third time? And they agreed that he could. And his older brother, Father Patrick Flanagan, said, why don't you go to Innsbruck, Austria? So in Innsbruck, Austria.
Wow.
So from Omaha, Nebraska, he traveled to Innsbruck, Austria, and in that beautiful, clean mountain air, he was able to become a priest and was ordained. And his dream was then to come back and begin serving people. And when he was in Austria, he worked in a bookstore. He was at a little bookstore near the university selling books, and he went mountain climbing. He went, rode in the, did boat rides up and down the rivers, and just enjoyed the German culture, and he just loved it. But his calling was to come back to America, so that's what he did. About 1913, he returned to America and began his ministry in the state of Nebraska.
Well, what a circuitous route to the priesthood. I mean, so many barriers and walls and seeming failures and health, but I guess he really believed he had a call, I mean, to the priesthood, and he persevered in that. What would have happened had he given up on that? We would never have maybe Boys Town and Father. So you brought us to the point of, so he was ordained, came back to Omaha, and then what, in terms of his ministry, was he an assistant in the parish, or how did it work its way through?
When he returned to Nebraska, his first parish was a rural community, St. Patrick's Church in O'Neill, Nebraska, a large Irish community. And he loved it because it reminded him of his hometown of Ballymo, Ireland. Very rural community, farmers, and he was able to connect to the people there. They loved him, but it was very extreme weather in Nebraska. We had blizzards, especially turn of the century. He had great struggles with the weather there, but he would go out in the middle of blizzards and go to the communities. Hundreds of people would turn out to see him. He really succeeded there, but then he was called to come to the city of Omaha. So he came to the city of Omaha and went to a parish called St. Patrick's, which was a working class community where a lot of the people there worked in the meatpacking plants in the city of Omaha. So he came back. It's interesting, the two parishes he worked at were both named St. Patrick's. But he came back to Omaha and began working in St. Patrick's Church in Omaha as assistant pastor. And there he noticed these men on the streets in front of the church. So he went out one day and began to talk to these men, saying, why are you living on the streets here? Why aren't you in a home or an apartment? And they were basically working poor. These were men that had jobs. They could not make enough money to rent a decent place to live. So he said, I'm going to create a program for you. First he gave them money, and he realized that wasn't going to succeed. So he went to St. Vincent de Paul Society, said, will you help me create a program for these men? So working with the St. Vincent de Paul Society, they rented an old hotel. They called it the Working Man's Hotel. And Father Flanagan said, you can set your own rules, how you want to live here. My main rule is you cannot deny any man admittance, regardless of race, religion. All men are be treated equal when they come and want to live in the program. And it took off, and it was very successful. Eventually he opened 2 more in the city of Omaha, and they were doing great. But then after a year or so, the men coming there began to change. These were gentlemen living on the streets. Many had drug and alcohol problems, psychological problems. They really did not want Father Flanagan's help. They wanted to not partake in having a life, living, getting to a better place. And so he decided, well, why are you living this way? So he began to talk to these men, and he did a case study of over 2,000 of them. Just sat them down and talked to them and said, what's going on? All of them had the same story. When they were younger, their families broke up. Nobody wanted them, and so they ended up living on the streets by themselves. And at the same time at his shelters, the homeless boys in the city of Omaha began to come to him, because there were numbers of homeless boys. Some had families, some didn't. They were basically children nobody wanted, and they were just living on the streets in downtown Omaha, in the junkyards, railroad yards. These boys began to come to the shelter because they knew Father Flanagan was one of the few people that was willing to help them. And so he decided, you know, I'm working at the wrong end. I need to begin working what he called embryo men, these boys, and change their lifestyles so they would not end up like the men living in the shelters.
You just used the term. You said embryo men?
That's what
He said that?
Yes,
Okay.
he did. He looked at these boys saying, these boys have potentially a future. These men, unfortunately, did not want a future, but I can change that. So he decided he would start working with the boys. And he went to the courthouse in downtown Omaha and sat in the courtroom. Was really shocked what he saw. He saw children and infants were taken off to orphanages. A young lady would come into the jail or to the courthouse. Someone would say, I need a cook or a maid, and they take her away as a servant. But when these preteen boys or teenage boys came in, not anyone would be there to help them. No friend, no family, no minister. So he said, I'm going to be an advocate for the children nobody wanted. So that's when he began his serious concept to create a boys' town.
These houses, you went from 1 to 3 homes for men. Was he full-time in that, or was he doing this as a pastor and doing this on the side? Did he have a parish as well as doing this?
He was working at his parish, plus working at these shelters.
Okay, so now he's hitting kind of a crossroads, and he's saying, I want to deal with the embryo men because I want to get this early on. How was his bishop responding to all of this? I mean, was he encouraging about it, or he's saying, you know, what was his thinking about it?
His bishop was actually happy. He said, your work with the men, you have reached the point where it's functioning on its own. Turn it over to St. Vincent de Paul Society. But working with boys might be a better way for you to take your time. The whole Boys Town, the concept of it was very revolutionary. And within the city of Omaha, the Catholic Church already had orphanages. So the bishop said, if you open your program, I'll give you moral support, but you'll have no funding from me or no extra support. You'll be totally on your own to do this. So what Father Flanagan did at the courthouse, he met men and women of all different races and religions, because in the city of Omaha, everything was segregated by race and religion. So all these men and women, when he spoke to them, he said, I want to create a home where we just don't turn these boys out on the streets. They can come live with me, and I'll accept all the boys, regardless of the race or religion. So these men and women became our first board of trustees for Boys Town. And one of them, Mr. Henry Monsky, was a prominent Jewish attorney in the city of Omaha. He gave Father Flanagan the $90 to rent the first boarding house. So he's our first donor, really the first person to help Boys Town.
Well, Tom, let's pause at this point. We're speaking with Tom Lynch, Director of Community Programs at Boys Town. It's www.boystown.org. He's also the historian for Boys Town. It's an absolutely fascinating story about Father Flanagan coming over from County Roscommon, Ireland, revolutionary thinking and ways to reach out to all young boys. It develops into girls' ministry, I guess, in the 70s. It's a marvelous story. We want to hear from you. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Plenty more to come.
Welcome back. Well, you are an important part of our EWTN family, and we would love to hear from you. And especially if you have a question for our guest today, Tom Lynch, just give us a jingle during the live broadcast at 1-800-221-9460. If you're calling and you're outside of North America, you can reach us at area code 205-271-2980. And you can always send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com, and hopefully we'll use your question or your comment right here on the air. Well, Tom, before we went to break, we were sharing how we came up upon the first house, right? You had shared that there was a Jewish friend of Father Flanagan, and he had given him $90 to purchase the building.
And that was like a lot of money.
That was like a lot of money. But it was a mansion. It was a large home. And then he needed furniture for it. And so then the guy helped him bankroll furniture. Because, right, if you're going to bring in boys, you know, they needed places to sleep and eat and everything. So that was the beginning of birthing that beautiful ministry of Boys Town in the mansion. And then take us to now. Develop that.
Father Flanagan's first home had about 10 or 12 boys come the first few days, and then eventually 70 boys showed up, and he needed larger facilities. So he moved to a different, bigger building in downtown Omaha. That building was perfect for a little while, for about a couple years, but he always had dreams to have a farm and be independent. He loved a rural community like he had grown up in Ireland. So eventually the organization that he was renting said, you have to move on now, we want our building back. So throughout the city of Omaha, he went to buy property. Everywhere he went, nobody wanted him. Because he had all these different boys of races and religions living together. Everybody said, we don't want you in our community. So in 1921, he moved west of the city 10 miles and purchased a farm called Overlook Farm. Beautiful property, 160 acres. It had crops, it had orchards. He said, this is what I want for my children, a beautiful, clean environment. So Father Flanagan moved there. And in our community today, as he had, there are no fences and gates because he envisioned it being a home, and he said, you can't fence in your family members. So he created this beautiful village there for the boys, and eventually it developed and grew over the years and expanded, and today we have about 600 acres. But in the early
600 acres. Okay.
The early days was very difficult for Father Flanagan. He was doing great raising crops and taking care of the boys until the Great Depression hit and the Dust Bowl years hit. Not part of any Catholic organization or religious group, or he refused to take money from the government because he said people put strings on it. I don't be independent. So when the Great Depression hit and the Dust Bowl hit at the same time, his donors could not send in money, and the crops died, and he was on the verge of closing. And we have letters where he's begging the American public to help keep Boys Town open, and he had to send away many of the boys, and it really just broke his heart, because he wrote every day during the Great Depression, 5 to 10 boys will walk up to the door and ask to live at Boys Town. They have to send them away. So he said, I'm going to make a village for 1,000 boys. So even though the sheriff was at the door trying to foreclose on Boys Town, he was devising great plans to build a huge village. And in our Holly History Museum, we have the blueprint that he actually sat down and drew on a brown piece of paper, saying, this is my future dream of the size of the village, the community I'm going to develop. And eventually he was able to build that community.
Well, in the movie with Spencer Tracy, they did, and I'm sure in his real life, you know, his friends and the board, everyone was coming. He's like, yeah, this is it, Father, this is it. And he said, but I'm going to pray. And that was his weapon of warfare, that he would be a praying priest saying, Lord, bless this place, make provision. And God did, didn't he?
He did. Father Flanagan saved Boys Town numerous times. Just when it looked like Boys Town was on the verge of closing, someone would come forward and say, I'll donate some money to help you. Farmers would stop by and donate food. So he was very lucky that he had good supporters and donors and a very good spiritual life. And he always said, I'm doing God's work in the ministry he had.
Tell us about, we keep mentioning the movie in 38 or 39, Boys Town. You're talking about the 30s, the Great Depression, right? 1930 and years, you know, after that, a few years after that, and just barely keeping it alive, really making appeals. How is it that Hollywood came to him? Did they just come once? Did they come a number of times? How did he evaluate that? That must have been a little bit tricky for him. But how did that work out?
Father Flanagan was a fantastic marketer. That was something from the very beginning. He said, you must put your story forward. So from the very beginning, he was talking to newspaper reporters, trying to save children across the country. When he would go to a community, he would talk to local press saying, this is the type of community I'm creating and why we need to help these children. So he was building a network across the United States of people
without
interested
social media.
No social media. No, he was just doing it the old-fashioned way with newspapers and writing letters. And then it gradually grew that a magazine wrote an article about him. And someone in Hollywood read the magazine article and said, this might be a good idea for a movie. So some people came from Hollywood, visited Boys Town and said, this is such a unique community, maybe we could do a movie about Boys Town. So he spoke to Father Flanagan and he said, I will permit that as long as I have complete say over what you write about us and what the script will be. So they agreed to that, and Father sold the rights for $5,000. So even today we do not own the rights at Boys Town to the motion picture Boys Town. And they came from Hollywood, filmed it right in the village, because they said, we can't really reproduce this in Hollywood. So if anyone watches that early movie, that is the village of Boys Town, and all the boys in the scenes are actually Boys Town boys. They all got to be extras. So when they filmed the movie there, they took it back to Hollywood, and then they wouldn't release it because Louis B. Mayer said there's no sex in the movie, no one's going to want to go see it. So Mickey Rooney and Spencer Tracy went to them and said, please release the movie. We think it will be a success.
Yeah.
So finally, Louis B. Mayer said, I'll release it, and it was a huge success. Worldwide sensation. Father Flanagan became an instant worldwide figure. The movie won several Oscars, one for Spencer Tracy for Best Actor, and it was a great boom for Boys Town.
So now things are rolling even more largely. Share with us about what took place after that, and then it seems as if he got involved with the United States government even during or after World War II or something. So then he became an ambassador, like for the Boys Town philosophy and way, and this kind of new way of thinking about how you reach children.
After the movie Boys Town came out, Father Flanagan was great demand because it projected and portrayed his theories and concepts. He created Boys Town to stop the concept of eugenics, which says based on someone's race or religion determine how they would turn out in the society. He was totally hated that. So once the movie came out, people from all over the United States were requesting his assistance, governments, individuals, and eventually he was doing work for the presidents, President Roosevelt and President Truman. And President Roosevelt actually said America needs 49 more Father Flanagans, one for every state and territory. And by World War II, Father Flanagan was sitting on government commissions determining what the effect of the war was upon families. And then after the war, he was asked by President Truman to go on missions overseas. First he went to Asia, went to Japan, the Philippines, Korea, was shocked what he discovered in those countries, how those poor children were being treated after the war. And he wrote a report called Children of Defeat, presented it to President Truman. President Truman said, this is such a great work you have done there. Can you please do a similar mission for Europe? And that's when he asked Father Flanagan to go to Europe, and that's where he eventually passed away in Berlin, Germany, at age 62 of a massive heart attack.
Heart attack.
Well, we have a caller on the phone. Her name, I believe, is Jermaine. And so welcome to At Home with Jim and Joy. Your question or your comment for Tom?
Well, the thing, I have a brother-in-law whose mama and daddy had passed away by the time he was 5 years old. And so this aunt took care of him until he got to be 10. And then they brought him to Boys Town. I don't know how they found out about it. See, I didn't know him at this time. But anyway, and by the way, I did see that movie that he's talking about with Mickey Rooney. And so he went over there and he stayed in Boys Town until he graduated, and he picked up the trade of being a barber. And he cut boys' hair. And he turned out to be a fine religious father. And he married my sister. And they live in New Orleans, and they raised 2 boys and 8 grandchildren.
Wow.
A set of twins, and awesome. They are just so religious.
Wonderful.
So religious.
Thank you so much for this testimony. I'm sure you've got hundreds and thousands of testimonies over 100 years. What's the secret to these testimonies through Boys Town? What's the secret of being this kind of charity for 100 years?
The secret is Boys Town uses a proven model. We have a program where we do research, we see what is working for children and for families, and we carry out that program. That goes all the way back to Father Flanagan. We just don't begin a program thinking, oh, it sounds like a good idea. We do research and see how can this benefit this child or that family. And that story we just heard is a very typical story. Many of our boys and girls who come to us, society's given up on them, their families have given up on them, and then they prove through a little spiritual life, spiritual help, education, some training, that they can turn out to be productive citizens. And to us, that's a success story. Because Father Flanagan always said if one of his former boys went out, had a family and a good job, that was a success, and that's how we look at that today. They're contributing to their community, and they're helping their fellow man, so that's an exciting story. I'm glad I heard that.
We were sharing with you in the back room, when we knew we were going to be doing the show. Again, I hadn't read up on Boys Town until now. Again, I'm thinking of the movie, a little bit I've seen that, thinking about the good reputation handed on from our own parents. Everybody knows Boys Town. Boys Town's a good thing. And then finally when I watched some of the videos, and then must have been from a helicopter, and again, you've mentioned hundreds of acres of land and these beautiful trees and how many facilities, and then how many house groups and how many programs. And so please explain to us again Boys Town now. I mean, I said, Joy, you've got to see this because this is not what I was expecting. And so just tell us just how large and how beautiful and how intricate it is.
Boys Town, if you see the movie,
Right.
it talks about our community at Boys Town in Nebraska. That is our main community that we have. It's our national headquarters. In the village of Boys Town, we have about 350 boys and girls living with us. We have 60 homes for them. They have married couples called family teachers who live with them in the home. We have our own school system there. We have our own police fire department. We have a nature habitat, lakes for the boys and girls to use. We have a field house based on the University of Michigan field house designed by Father Flanagan. And then we have a 24-hour-a-day hospital program there and a pediatric program. And we have a new psychiatric program for boys and girls too. So we have this major hub in Nebraska, and then we have sites across the United States. They're from Nevada, they're in New Orleans, they're in Florida, and in the Northeast. And at these programs, we're working with children and families. We have in-home family programming where we actually go into a home and work with the family on the verge of breaking up. We have psychiatric programs, and we have a new neurobehavioral program where we're trying to see why boys and girls are having problems in their lives. We go into schools, we go into churches, we just go into numerous programs across the United States, come to us, and individuals, and families can just call us. They can go to our website, boystown.org, and they'll see many programs and parenting tips that they can have, especially going back to school. That's some parents have anxiety and children have anxiety. They can go to our website and learn about what any problems in going back to school. And we have our national hotline that is staffed 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. They can call that line and there's someone there to help them. And we touch the lives of over 2 million children and families every year through our Boys Town programs.
2 million children a year. Yeah, it's amazing.
Tom, tell our family at home Father Flanagan's motto about a bad boy.
Father Flanagan often said there's no such thing as a bad boy.
Say it again.
There's no such thing as a bad boy, and today we actually like to add and girl too, because girls are part of our program today that we serve.
You know, and that, I mean, I work with clients in unplanned pregnancies, and you know, I see the wreckage of humanity on a daily basis, and sometimes the mom comes in and it's bad, and I'd say, your child isn't bad. The behavior might be bad, or you might have some poor parenting skills, but the human being is sacred.
Yes.
And that life is of high value to our Lord. And so, when I read that, I was like, say it again, because the world says you're bad. You know, and so then when you're bad, what are you going to do with me? Throw me away? I'm bad. You can't fix me.
The other thing Joy always says, and she got this from her mom, you know, we're counseling these women coming in, many of whom have now been used and abandoned. And so here they are, they're pregnant, maybe numerous times pregnant, maybe sexually transmitted diseases, all these promises, and they're on their own, and some decisions that they've made that haven't been good. And Joy always says to them, you're good. And maybe they never heard that before, or they're not feeling very good, and maybe some of their choices aren't really good, or choices that have been made for them aren't really good. But the essence of your being, you're made in the image and likeness of God, and you are good.
Yes.
And that's what we were getting from Father Flanagan. He would always say, except for Mickey Rooney, he said, you may be the first one, but I don't know if you're really good, Mickey. He didn't say
But
that.
he hung in there.
But I think he was kind of manipulating a little bit, so he said, I'm going to be good. But because they were believed in. Yeah.
We have a caller from Ireland, and I believe her name is Sidelma. And welcome to At Home with Jim and Joy. Your question or your comment for Tom?
Hello, Jim and Joy, and hello, Tom.
Hello, Fidelma.
I'm delighted to phone in from Ireland, from a little village called Ballymo, which is the birthplace of Father Flanagan. I'd just like to comment and say how proud we are of our son, Father Flanagan, who came from such humble beginnings and went on to achieve so much in his lifetime. Father Flanagan came from a hard-working farm family where he learned the true values of family life, such as caring, sharing, and praying together. And I suppose we all firmly believe that God chose Edward from a young age to carry out such God-filled work in his life, and those values and lessons he learned as a child, and how a family should function, he brought with him. And I suppose we could say he modelled Boys Town on his own life experience. So we're delighted that we're a sister city of Boys Town. We have been for over a decade. We have very strong links with Boys Town. And we share a common desire to keep the memory of Father Flanagan alive. study his life.
Yeah.
And we welcome visitors here anytime. You can go and visit Father Flanagan's homestead and our local churches here where he was baptized, and the local school where he attended. And we make efforts all the time to honour his memory here in Ballymoe in the west of Ireland. So
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
For
Beautifully
calling.
So you could visit the home of Father there? I mean, is it like you can go through it, or you just see it?
It's on someone's private property. It's in the middle of a cow pasture, and all that's left now is just 3 stone walls.
Okay.
But you can walk up. The family that owns it is named the Collins family, and they very graciously allow people to go and visit the location. And when you see that, you're really humbled to think Father Flanagan lived there with 15 other individuals. They were wealthy. They actually had a window, because most homes couldn't afford a glass window. And then he left that, came to America, and then created the program that he did and touched lives of millions of people around the world. It's just amazing.
Well,
to
this
see.
Woman's testimony is just so powerful, because with all the education he had and all this stuff, I mean, her viewpoint is, hey, this is our town's moral principles. That's what he's carrying here with him. He didn't have to go to school to learn all that. This is the way we live here. We're going to have to take a break. At this point, we're going to hold you over. Director of Community Programs at Boys Town, Tom Lynch, is here with us. It's boystown.org, boystown.org. We'll be right back. Please don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you are an important part of our EWTN family, and I would love for you to join us live right here on At Home. You could be a member of our studio audience. You could have met our wonderful guest today, Tom Lynch. All you need to do is contact the EWTN Pilgrimage Department, send them an email, pilgrimages@ewtn.com, and they will work out all those details for you. You can give them a jingle at 205-271-2966. We would love for you to come to Irondale, Alabama. You can also go to Hanceville to the shrine where you could visit Mother Angelica's resting place. Well, right now we're going to go straight to Rome to hear from Joan. Joan, what do you have for us today?
Well, greetings from Rome on the lazy, hazy summer days of Ferragosto. Now, in Italy, we're about to celebrate one of the biggest holidays of the year, August 15th, and that is called Ferragosto here, but it really does refer to the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And actually, Ferragosto comes from Feriae Augustae, and it seems that in the year 18 BC, Roman Emperor Augustus declared that the whole month of August would be dedicated to Feriae, and that was a series of celebrations and festivals and so forth. Now, the most important day for them was August 13th. That was the feast, if you will, or marking the goddess Diana. And speaking of holidays, Vatican employees get the August 14, 15, and 16 off. So although the term Ferragosto really is kind of pagan in origin, it obviously refers to a strictly religious feast day. Now, I'm sure you know there's been a constant tradition in the church that Mary was assumed into heaven. And even as early as the 5th century in Syria, this was marked. And then it spread to other countries in what we call modern-day Europe. In the 12th century, it was celebrated in Rome and in France. And then in the 13th century, more or less, the Assumption was a tenet of the Catholic faith. And I'm sure you know that in 1950, Pope Pius XII declared this a dogma of the Church. And life in Rome in this period is something like you can't even imagine. You can walk the streets, it's quieter than usual. You're going to see signs that say, closed for vacation. And these will be on stores and supermarkets and florists, pharmacies, tobacco stores, you name the type of store, sometimes even restaurants and bars. So it's an unusual experience to be here in August, but actually it's kind of nice. And when the popes used to stay at Castel Gandolfo for the summer, they would relax in the hotter weather, and actually on the feast day, they would celebrate Mass in the little church there of San Tommaso. So Hope you have a beautiful Feast of the Assumption, but time's up, so back to you at home.
Joan, thank you so much. It's always great to hear from you, and it sounds like indeed a nice relaxing time there around Rome this time of year.
Well, we have a caller, and this is her question. Why did Flanagan have so much trouble figuring out his vocation? And this is from Amal in Texas.
Father Flanagan had very poor health when he was born, and so that hindered him in a lot of the work that he tried to do at an early age. But he fought over that health issues and then continued on his mission to become a priest, because he really wanted to help people.
I don't think he had any problem figuring out his vocation. It was people figuring out he really did have a vocation and he can overcome all that he overcame. I don't think there was any confusion on his end. It was just a difficult way to go with some hills, but he was certainly determined to go that route. 100 years in December of Boys Town. So tell us about what's going on there, the enthusiasm that's there, some of the events that are planned. How can people connect with what's going on? What's being offered at this time?
At Boys Town for our centennial, we're doing a year-long celebration. The U.S. Mint just issued coins, commemorative coins, that people can still buy if they go to the U.S. Mint. Dealing with Boys Town Centennial, we have new publications that have come out talking about our centennial. We have a new statue in our village called The Work Continues, representing that we serve young ladies and families today. That was just unveiled in June. And we have even more celebrations yet to come. And people can learn about that by going to boystown.org. And our ministry of Boys Town keeps expanding across the United States, serving more children and families. And if anyone would like to become part of that, they can go to boystown.org and learn of all the different ways they can help our boys and girls and families across the United States.
That's great.
Perfect. Says, I have another email for you. It says, I understand Father Flanagan is being considered for sainthood. Can you update us on the progress toward his possible canonization? And this is Dolores from Eagle Harbor, Maryland.
Father Flanagan's cause is moving right along. It is currently at the Vatican being reviewed. He is a servant of God, and people can learn about his cause by going to fatherflanagan.org. That's the organization that's promoting his cause.
Yeah.
So when did Boys Town start taking young girls?
In 1979, Boys Town took in young ladies. From the very beginning, Father Flanagan talked about young ladies and issues facing them. But in 1979, they became part of our program. So it's been over 30 years now we've had young ladies with us at Boys Town.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, you know, this is not some long ago time. You know, when you're speaking about the 40s and the 50s, Father Flanagan, well, when did he pass away? What year
1948.
1948. So there's so many people, and his family migrated. His parents came out that way, so maybe there's still some kin. So people are really familiar with him. You still have people living that knew him, were impacted by his life. And then you've got, I'm thinking about the sainthood, you know, route as well, and having so much testimony to his virtue and heroic virtue. And then you've got people coming back over 100 years. Like I went to the website and I saw guys that didn't look like little boys, but they look like really older men. This is going to be a very moving time over this celebration of people coming back, giving testimony, giving witness. You must have so much information on Father Flanagan to sort out, to go through, to submit to Rome. Tell us about that.
Well, in our archives at Boys Town, we have 3 million documents. And in there, we have a lot of Father Flanagan's writings, his prayers, his speeches that he gave. He was constantly traveling across the United States, around the world, on government missions and just private visits. So a lot of that material has all been organized and detailed. We're actually sharing some of it with the government, because there's at Manzanar, there's a camp where Japanese Americans were interned, and Father Flanagan brought people out of the camps because he opposed the internment of Japanese Americans and brought them to live at Boys Town and be part of the Boys Town family. And so we're sharing that material, the letters he wrote, encouraging those people to come to Boys Town, and they can live a normal life during the war years.
And Father Flanagan's remains are there on site?
Yes, they are. They're at our chapel, our Chapel of the Immaculate Conception. Dowd Chapel is where Father's tomb is located, and people are able to come out and visit his tomb and attend worship services there. We have 3,000 people every Sunday that come and worship. We have daily Mass at the chapel.
Tom, thank you so much for being with us and bringing us up to date on Boys Town. An incredible, incredible work. Remember that the Family Celebration and Media Missionary Gathering are taking place. The Family Celebration, Worcester, Massachusetts, the DCU Center, September 9th and 10th. You can hear from Michael Warsaw, Doug Keck, Father Mitch Pacwa, many other favorites of yours. Be part of a live TV audience, Holy Mass, opportunities for confession. shop at Religious Catalog. And plenty of things there for the children with the Faith Factory. Go to EWTN.com for more information. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for being a part of the history of Boys Town. Go out and visit them there. And always remember, you're an important part of this family. You're never alone. You're always at home with Jim and with Joy. Think of Mother, thinking of the Boys Town, thinking about those young people who came, and we looked at some of those videos, and they say, I wasn't just coming to an institution, I was becoming part of a family. We're family here. You're never alone, and Jesus Christ is Lord. God bless you and all of your loved ones. Keep it on EWTN. Bye now.